What's going on, everyone? So we got news per Eric Pincus that Chris Paul is a realistic option this upcoming offseason to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be split from the jump on Chris Paul, so let's dive into it. Let's talk about it. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. So I know immediately the first comments or just thoughts are he's old, not the same guy, he's injury prone, right? Which are all very valuable concerns, right? But the biggest factor I think you need to keep in mind is that he's not going to be playing anywhere near a role that we've seen him play with other teams in the past, right? You think of the Clippers and, the Houston Rockets and the Phoenix Suns and all these teams that he's played on. He's always been one of the main pieces, right? He's always been the number one or number two option, right? He's had so much of a workload and having to facilitate and play defense and score, 20 points a game and do all the things that he was able to do in his prime. Where now you have a Chris Paul that has an understanding. He has a grasp of like, hey, I'm not the same guy I once was. I am willing to come off the bench. I am willing to play a limited role. I am willing to just kind of be what my strengths are, which is a high IQ and playmaking guy, and go get you a bucket from time to time, right? The Lakers could use a lot of value in that. I wanted Chris Paul. I was hoping this past offseason and maybe even around the trade deadline, hopefully he was getting bought out and he could have been a vet minimum guy. Because that's something. Now, Chris Paul at $20 million a year, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But if he's coming in with the Lakers, he's probably signing a vet minimum contract. If he's signing a vet minimum contract, there's a ton of value in Chris Paul. I mean, his IQ alone would be massive. Now, to me, it kind of boils down to what does the roster shape up look like, right? Now, if you were to go get, say, a Trae Young, again, I know a lot of people don't want him. I'm just using him because it's an option that is very real that could happen. Let's say you go get a Trae Young, right? You have Trae, you have LeBron. Now the need for Chris Paul, I don't think is as high. Like, I still wouldn't hate it, but when you're the biggest problem that the Lakers have had over the years, right, is that when LeBron goes to the bench, the offense just falls apart and is stagnant, right? We can't get anything generated. That's where I think Chris Paul would add a ton of value. It'd give you a different look. It's a guy that can make plays. It's a guy that can take care of the basketball. It's a guy that can get everybody and kind of keep the offense flowing and still have that high IQ guy when LeBron's out of the game. But if you have a guy like a Trae, right, when LeBron's out of the game, you're probably always running one of them on the court at all times. So you don't have that necessary need for that extension and that other playmaker, right? Like, now, if Chris Paul was willing to because Chris Paul I could see being like our Rondo in 2020, right? Where he's a guy that in big moments, he can step up, he can play, he can be that facilitator, he can be that playmaker. He's not afraid of the moment, right? Like, veteran guy, IQ guy, extension of the coach, right? Works well with LeBron. All of those things, I think Rondo can kind of be that for the Lakers, right? But, if he's willing, if he wants to and has to play 20 plus minutes a game, right? And he's like, hey, I need to be, full time on the basketball court, whatever, right? Now I think it becomes a problem if you were to get a Trae, right? Because if he's like Rondo, think of the 2020. Rondo, I mean, there were numerous games where he was getting DNPs. I mean, he wasn't playing a ton during the regular season, but when we needed him, he stepped up and played big, right? If Chris Paul's okay with that, like, hey, you need me to give you 20 minutes? I got you. You need me to take a game off? I got you, right? Then I think you could still bring him on. But more so, I would look at Chris Paul if we were to get even maybe a DeJounte Murray, right? Because Trae is so high usage. He's so on ball. Right, where DeJounte, he can play a little. You don't want him playing off ball heavily, obviously, because of what happened with Trae. But he is better suited to do that. Where Trae, he's always going to have the ball in his hands. Right, so I think if you were to get a DeJounte Murray, that secondary playmaker off the bench, and Chris Paul, I think would add some value. Or if you were to get a Donovan Mitchell, or if you were to get some piece that wasn't just so high usage, wouldn't hate it. Now, some people might say, well, Gabe Vincent, right? Gabe Vincent, I like the idea of Gabe Vincent alongside Chris Paul because Gabe Vincent isn't the playmaker. He can make plays. He can initiate the offense. He could step up or set up but he's more so off ball. He's more of an off ball guy. And that's why he's one of the guys that in theory should be a perfect complement alongside LeBron James. Having Chris Paul and then him, Gabe Vincent being that point of attack guy to kind of offset Chris Paul and his inabilities at times to play defense. Because, I mean, he still tries, but he's not the guy he once was defensively. I think that would, still have its value. It also comes down to like what happens with D'Lo, right? Because let's say the Lakers end up keeping D'Lo. Right? There's some talks that may happen. If the Lakers were to end up keeping D'Lo, then I don't think Chris Paul makes any sense because I still believe the Lakers go get a DeJounte, go get a Trey, go get somebody, right? Whether they keep D'Lo or not, and probably look to trade D'Lo at the trade deadline or whatever. But that means you're going to have him for a good majority of the season. And between him, let's say Trae Young and LeBron James, or even DeJounte Murray, right, instead of Trae, you're just that's so many ball handlers, there's so many playmakers. I just think that at some point, Chris Paul kind of becomes redundant, unless, like I said, he is willing to kind of just play in spots, right? Like he's a guy that's like, hey, you don't need me to play this game. Fine, no worries. I won't, LeBron's sitting tonight. Cool, I'll step up. I'll play, 25 minutes. Also with like the injury concerns and stuff like that. Again, I'm not really worried about that because he's not going to play the role and be that big guy that we need, that many other teams in the past have needed him to be, right? Chris Paul is going to be our 7th, 8th guy at that point. Right? Like, however the starting unit shapes up, Chris Paul is just going to be another piece, right? He's not going to be one of the main pieces, right? Let's say it's even DeJounte, right? You're talking, AD, LeBron, DeJounte are your main 3 guys, and then whoever else is in the starting unit is going to be your 5, and then, maybe Chris Paul is your 6th. At best. But realistically, it's probably going to be even less than that. He's probably just going to be primarily just the extension, the playmaker. And I do like that. I do think that there is value in him even beyond the production on the basketball court. Right? We saw him do well with the with the Warriors, right? Like he was doing everything they wanted. He gave them a different look, right? When he was on the court, he was able to facilitate, right? He had the shooting, all that stuff. Like I do believe he can do similar things with the Lakers, come in and play a key role and get kind of be that like, hey, when LeBron goes to the bench, we can rest easy, right? We don't have to worry about like just everything crumbling and falling apart, right? Because again, like LeBron, he's not 27 anymore, so he can't impact and dominate the game on all levels and all aspects like he used to be able to, but he can still kind of control the game just with his IQ and just getting guys in position and just getting guys looks and set up. Well, you can do a lot of the same stuff with Chris Paul. Again, Chris Paul can't impact the game like he could when he was 27, but he still has the IQ. He still sees things develop. He can still kind of be that initiator and that playmaker. He can still kind of control certain elements of the game for the Lakers when LeBron is out and goes to the bench or even alongside LeBron. It's also a guy that LeBron would trust. However you feel about, LeBron and other players, like it's LeBron still would trust and believe in Chris Paul, and he's a guy that I do believe could have a real impact and kind of have LeBron's blessing and buy-in, right? And so I just think it gives you that veteran, gives you another leader in the locker room, gives you that competitive dog, right? Chris Paul, he's an a-hole, but he's a competitive dog, right? He just wants to win. Right? It gives you that, gives you another playmaker, gives you a guy that can play alongside LeBron, play off of LeBron, be the primary playmaker, even alongside LeBron, right? Somebody that LeBron would trust and defer to. It's probably one of the only guys in the league that actually has like the playmaking pedigree and IQ and whatnot that's on par with LeBron. So, I think all around, and you're talking a vet minimum deal, right? You're not talking about him making $30 million a year, $20 million a year, $15 million. Like he's not signing our taxpayer mid-level or a mid-level except, or he shouldn't, right? He shouldn't. But on a vet minimum deal, I just think at that point, it's so low risk, high reward that you almost got to, right? Like it's just, again, it depends on how the roster looks. You don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen. You don't want to have too many playmakers to where, guys are just kind of disgruntled because they're not playing and it's kind of just this wreck and this like you want it to kind of like, okay, here's your clear role, right? LeBron, you're being LeBron. DeJounte, you're being DeJounte. Chris Paul, when one of those guys go to the bench, when DeJounte goes to the bench, you're in, you're playing 20 minutes a game, and we need you to handle the playmaking duties, trickle in a little scoring, and just kind of help keep the offense afloat, right? When those two guys go to the bench, we need to keep the offense afloat. The only thing that, because if the Lakers do get, like I said, a Trey, a DeJounte, any of the playmaking guys, right? Then there are questions of does Chris Paul do make a ton of sense? Because a lot of the elements that I talked about when LeBron goes to the bench, if you have a DeJounte, is that still a problem, right? If you have a Trey, is that still a problem? And also I think it comes down to the head coach, because Darvin Ham, what did he do? He never let D'Lo run the point. It was Austin Reeves, right? And he's not a playmaker. And you'd see the offense just completely fall apart. But Darvin Ham just loved to play Austin Reeves as your primary playmaker with the bench unit. It didn't make any sense, right? So that's why I was like, oh, Chris Paul, if he gets bought out, he'd make a lot of sense. And I still think he does have that, because look, the Lakers are probably losing D'Lo, probably losing Austin Reeves. They may or may not lose Gabe Vincent, right? You might look up and it might just be LeBron and a DeJounte, or LeBron and a Trey. And it's okay, we do need that other playmaker. Maybe we bring Chris Paul in, kind of figure it out, right? Maybe only when Trey is out of the game, maybe Chris Paul is in the game, right? So Trey gets some rest. Boom, Chris Paul's in the game, right? Those are kind of the options. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of Chris Paul on the Lakers? Do you not? Are you somewhere in between about it? Are you mixed on it? Again, on a vet minimum, I think it's just, again, low risk, high reward. But how do you feel? Do you feel the same way? I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.